Another topic I've been exploring in my mind is the topic of being successful as a black man in South Africa while you're from a township environment. Now, one thing that you have to know is that if in South Africa currently you earn more than 30,000 per month, you are in the top 5 of the highest earners in the country. That's a very minute part of the whole country. Meaning, as an engineer, you get to that level very, very early in your career, mostly. And you soon find yourself in a stage where what you can afford is not something that is familiar to the background that you come from. One thing that you have to be ready for is the fact that you'll be stepping on new territories, unfamiliar to everybody who formed the core of your family and your social life. And soon you start speaking a language that a lot of people around you do not understand. And I'm not talking about you flaunting the money around or you showing them through the materials that you have. I'm talking about what you're having for lunch starts becoming different. Not because you are flaunting or flossing, it's because that's what you can now afford. Those are the doors that have been opened to you. Money starts being different. You start seeing it differently to the core of where you come from. That journey is bound to be a lonely one. You are bound to start stepping out of your racial majority, and you are bound to start feeling lonely. For most people, it can get lonely to the point where you start hating your success because it's removing you from your comfort zone. But as a human being with dreams and goals, you cannot pull yourself back to accommodate people who are, based on what you've achieved, are at a lower end. What you should do is always look at what's in front of you, people who are doing better, and put yourself in situations where you spend more time with them, those who are doing better, so that that guilt that you feel about being in a good situation while the majority of your people are in dire situations gets minimized by you seeing people in better situations than you. So it's a moral dilemma that one will go through, and that is one moral dilemma which can make success a bitter pill at times. My name is Sibusiso Tshabalala. Some of my friends call me Zebra, which is also my real name. But back at home where I come from, I'm called Ulava. Then at work, it's a version of Sibusiso, which is Sibu. First and most important of all, I am a father of 2 beautiful daughters and a husband to a beautiful wife. That is what I hold highly more than anything. Then in terms of my career, I am an industrial engineering professional, an industrial engineer. At work, I work as an operations management specialist, and within that, I specialize in change management, meaning in anything which they need new operations to be introduced, I'm the one who champions that whole transition. Well, the journey all began when I was doing matric. During April of that year, which was just after the first term, a guy came to my school and offered to mentor me and a friend of mine. At that time, there was still standard grade and higher grade maths, and we were doing standard grade maths because higher grade in my area was unheard of. I'm from a township school called Pumlani Secondary School. Then he asked us what do we want to do in terms of pursue our careers after matric. And I told him I want to do mechanical engineering. It so happened he was a mechanical engineer. His name is Eric Mabuza. Then he told me that I basically cannot become an engineer in terms of I cannot go to university with standard grade maths and science. Then at that time I had to change. Now the adjustment was a huge thing because there I was on standard grade maths cruising. Things were relatively easy. And that's how I took school. It should be easy, it should be breeze, you should just do the bare minimum. And all of a sudden, I had to be that kid that puts a lot of time and a lot of effort into understanding deeper concepts. Luckily, the year went well. I put in a lot of work across nights. I even started a trend of waking up midnight and studying before I go to school. Basically, I would study from 12 midnight and till around about 6 when I start preparing for school. Then in my matric year, my grades were very good. I got a distinction in maths and science. Then got offered a bursary through the Eastern Youth Trust. I did mechanical engineering. Didn't know a lot about it. First year was relatively okay. Second year, when concepts started getting deeper, I started realizing it's not really for me. And through that realization, there were a lot of things happening in my life. My father passed away, and that was one of the drives. I wanted to get a good career. My father was a motor mechanic, so that impressive mechanical engineer, that whole thing. And I lost drive. I lost the drive when he passed away. I needed to recalibrate and become me. As a result of all that conflict in my life, I failed dismally at vets. Got out, the system spit me out, and it was followed by a year of sizable depression. And throughout that, I worked as a call center agent. Then in 2009, with a 3,000 rand salary, I decided, you know what, this is it. I have to really find something that talks to me. Throughout that, at Wits, I discovered industrial engineering. And after the call center experience, I worked at a logistics company, EWC Logistics, where I saw industrial engineers and things that they did. And it clicked. It became more natural as I would spend time with engineers while working as a general worker, putting solutions together with them. And when the temptation of promotions came, I realized, you know what, the money might start getting good, but I want better. That is when I took my last salary, registered at Bantux, and started my industrial engineering journey. And ever since then, it took me exactly 4 years to get through my degree. Didn't want to spend a day extra. And that began an incredible journey to where I am now, which is at a junior managerial position and with a lot of perks and prospects for a much, much brighter future. In order to get to study industrial engineering, you need to first have good matric English, a C grade and upwards, maths C grade and upwards, and science, physical science C grade and upwards. Those are the minimum requirements, and again there's this point scoring system which you can just go and look it up on the brochure of any university. In your first 2 years, within the course of industrial engineering, you look at building courses, like building foundational courses, which are like your maths. You do a whole lot of mathematics, you do technical drawing, you do basic or broad production processing. You do motion studies such as statics and dynamics. Then only after your first 2 years you start focusing on industrial engineering specific courses. Those are things like your operations management, your facilities planning, your operations research, your business engineering, your management accounting. You look at labor relations and law. And then on your final year, you would do again those in a higher and more detailed manner, and it also introduces things like industrial logistics and operations management and such. Then at the end, you need to do a mini project of a problem that you identify within the field of industrial engineering and do a project on. And mine was on the betterment of the claims process within the small claims fund, which is like a compensation fund, basically, where as there are injuries at work, people need to file claims within the compensation commission. So I studied the whole process from injury to compensation and looked at ways at which different steps in the whole process can be optimized in order to make sure that people who are injured at work or die at work can get themselves or their families compensated in the least time possible. And I presented it to the Compensation Commission. My challenges were the environment first. Now, we were only 7 out of more than 60 black people within the group. And to step out of a zone where you're from a pre-university background with only your race to a side where it's other races and the culture shock within the whole environment, to me it was quite shaking at times, it was quite intimidating, and I think it's something that a lot of us who come from township schools experience, and if you don't adjust very well to that, it becomes something that can make or break you in terms of your confidence at university. So learning how to deal with that starts in you defining who you are and being comfortable in your own skin. To understand that your background, to be in the same place as people who are from more fortunate backgrounds, kind of shouldn't be something that cuts you down, but it should be something that validates you and builds you up to be better than the majority in that environment. That is what I struggle the most with. And secondly, I think prioritization and knowing what you're studying for, because your purpose on your towards your studies should be defined by you and not the marks that you get throughout your studies. You shouldn't really let the marks bother you that much. It's all about the lessons that you want to learn and knowing what is it that you want to excel in, basically based on what you see where you see your career going, and knowing exactly what is it that you can compromise on, but making sure that you move on step by step going forward. So goal setting should be something that is true to you as an individual, not based on the class average. My first job was at BHP Billiton. I worked in a ferromanganese smelter, which is based in Meyerton in the Vereeniging area. There I was a graduate in training since I had completed my industrial engineering degree. As a graduate in training, my job was to be an understudy to the current engineers who were in the company, help them in their specific projects while working in the plant and learning how the whole operation in the smelting smelting fraternity works. It took me about 6 months to complete that program, and after 6 months I started having to identify small projects that I could work on as an individual. So I did 2 projects. One was the sample management process optimization, which entailed looking at how samples of different raw materials and final products were taken, processed, and how the data was populated for everyone to see. That formed the basis for every decision making in the plant, because if you know that in a certain ore there would be contaminants, you'd know exactly that process needs to be halted, those contaminants need to be removed and stuff like that. Then in the casting machine operation, it was a piece of equipment that was used to load final product, which was molten material, and then dropped into the final product zone, which then it would get crushed minimally in order to be given to customers. If that casting machine did not work, it meant they have to cast into the ground, and that would increase the costs of the process drastically. So I needed to make sure that that casting machine is operational most of the time. So I did that project for 6 months, and then during a transition of BHP Billiton becoming South 32 and a little bit of downsizing, I found another opportunity at Toplan Engineering Consulting, which they were busy with rollouts of the Arieng bus system in the city of Tshwane. There I first worked as an operations specialist, where we write SOP, standard operating procedures for bus operations. Everything from how a driver operates the bus, within what parameters, speeds, how a bus driver reports a flat tire, how a bus driver logs into the systems that were in the bus, all the way to how the control system in the background responds to incidents on the bus or accidents, to how all operations fit in, how the cash is collected and stuff like that. And after working as an operations specialist within the same project, I was promoted to an operations manager, which meant doing the same operations but from a more strategic position. I started planning rollouts to new routes, like 2 routes which were rolled out while I was in operation. While I was the operations manager, was the route to Mamelodi from Hatfield, and the route from Hatfield all the way to a place called Rainbow Junction, which was like a gateway from Pretoria to the Hammanskraal area. And now I worked with the Gauteng Department of Community Safety, which are traffic officers. I'm an operations management specialist there, meaning I plan operations of the police. I manage the costing of the fleet that they use. I also look at the management of the staff at the depots where they park the cars, look at lease agreements, look at how we can improve relationships between landlords, look at how cars get maintained, and look at how we can reduce costs on behalf of the employer and things like that. Everything there we do under a project management handbook called FIDIC. Basically, all industrial engineering is about doing more with less. I see industrial engineering as simpler, better, faster with cheaper. So in all the work that I've done, I've taken complex processes and broken them down to small pieces, and within those small pieces I look at ways at which each and every piece of that work can be done with less resources and produce more results. So, for example, if you are working in an operation where you maybe in a bakery, one would look at how you can, within the baking process, use less electricity and make more bread. Let's take it back to my work environment. We are currently working at ways at which we can find stolen vehicles using minimal resources. What that entails is using infrastructure that is out there, be it CCTV footage or cameras in any location, and automatically pulling that data to find the location of those vehicles. That would mean you don't have to have police patrolling around the cities, roaming around and burning fuel. You'll just need to use whatever surveillance systems that are in either your road networks or within residential places or malls and all that, to pull that data automatically and send notifications to the police so that they can respond. In that way, you're solving resources through making sure that police only respond when there is something, as opposed to just like roaming around depending on luck, as I can say. So in all my working environments, it has been like that, where I find processes, measure the most critical performance indicators, define where the system or the operation is, define a vision of where we want to take the operation, and then work on how we can improve the steps in those operations to make that operation as efficient as possible. In the next 5 years, I see myself growing more in terms of family life than the career life. I believe that one should work for expression's sake, and one should have an evolving career. And when evaluating what really matters as one grows up, I've realized more and more that family is what really matters to me. So in the next 5 years, I see a transition from scaling down on my career and scaling up on my family life.